Thinking about buying your first home here in Austin, Texas? Before you start house hunting, you need to know that there's a lot more to do with your budget than just having your down payment ready. Today, I'm breaking down the hidden costs of buying a home here in Austin, Texas to help you avoid extra surprises or expensive mistakes, and also just to help you feel more confident during your home purchase. Hi, I am Brigid Schlegel. I'm a real estate agent here in Austin, Texas with eXp Realty and the Wolfpack Group. I help first-time home buyers and relocators to the Austin area, as well as investors, families, or young professionals looking to buy or sell just here in Austin. If you feel that you're ready to start your home search or have a property to sell, you can reach out to me and book a call down below. We will do a private consultation and strategy call just to see what will work best for your situation. I'm also more than happy to do a conversation over coffee if you are local here in Austin, Texas. Okay, so let's get into this because there is quite a lot of little details that you don't want to miss about all the costs that you should include in your budget. So of course, number one is going to be saving for that down payment. Usually your down payment is anywhere between 3 to 20%. However, that can definitely vary. The more money you put down at closing, the lower your monthly payment will be. Then you've got a budget for the general closing costs, and that's typically anywhere between 2 to 5% of the purchase price of the home or property. Now, this cost kind of encapsulates a handful of fees and costs associated with clearing the title and the services provided during the closing and escrow period. So this would include your title policy insurance, lender fees, notary fees, things like that. I've actually had some buyers ask if they could opt out to getting a title policy or clearing title. However, that is really not recommended. Your title policy is there to protect you. Without having that title policy, you're taking on the liability and financial risk tied to that property and all of the history of that property. That could include uncovered ownership issues such as airships or fraudulent activity, liens or judgments such as unpaid payoffs or contractor liens, unpaid mortgages or taxes, possibly even contractor liens, or even unpaid HOA dues. And when you sell the property and your potential buyer in the future is using a lender, that lender is also going to require a title policy to ensure that their funds are also not going to be at risk. So a real world example of that would be perhaps you purchased a home without a title policy, you just had the deed signed over, and then 6 months down the road, a contractor claims that you owe them as a homeowner $45,000 due to work that was done 6 months ago before you transferred title. That lien that the contractor has is attached to the property whether or not you were the owner at the time that the lien was placed. So now that you own the property, you have that financial risk and you have to now pay off that contractor lien. So the title search that would be done during your escrow would essentially find out in advance if there were any liens like that attached or associated to your property. And then after closing, in that scenario, you would have that title policy in order to get legal defense and settlement covered for. If you didn't have the title policy, you would be out of pocket to handle any attorney fees or settlements that needed to be made. So skipping it at closing may sound attractive because it's saving money wherever you can at the closing table. However, it's kind of like driving a car without car insurance. You don't really need it until you really, really need it. And then the cost of not having it could essentially be devastating to your financials. The next cost that you should be aware of is a loan origination fee, and this would only apply to you if you're using a lender to finance the purchase. If you're a cash buyer, this cost would not be associated to you. But this loan origination fee, this is essentially a charge that the lender collects at the start of the loan or at the closing table that covers their cost of processing, underwriting, and funding the loan. Kind of like a service charge for just making things happen. Typically, this cost is percentage based and it could range anywhere between 0.5% to 1% of your loan amount, but of course would depend on your lender. Next is the appraisal fee. Now, this is typically required by a lender. Sometimes they will waive the appraisal if the lender is already confident enough in the property value matching the sale price. the home. However, in many cases, you're going to need to pay that appraisal, which could be anywhere between $400 to $700 on average. However, definitely it's going to range a lot based on the property itself and its size. This is an important cost to be aware of, and I'll probably make an entire video just on appraisals sometime soon. Oh, hello. Essentially, appraisals are very crucial to the financing portion of your transaction, and most lenders will use them to evaluate that you're not overpaying for the home and that they're not overpaying for the home as well. Next is going to be the survey fee, and this is not always going to be necessary to get a new survey. A lot of times the seller can provide a recent enough survey, but if for whatever reason the seller can't provide a survey and your lender requires one, then it would be up to negotiations between you and the seller to determine which party is going to be responsible for paying for a new survey. And also, surveys can be usually just a few $100. For a typical home here in Austin, it might be around $300 to $500. Again, it's another cost based on the size of the home and the lot that it's on. Next cost is your home inspection. Now, this is highly, highly recommended. The only time I see buyers not doing a home inspection is for investor situations where they're buying off-market as-is deals. If you're a first-time home buyer, that does not apply to you. It is highly recommended to get a home inspection, even though it costs a few $100s upfront before that closing even happens. So during your option period, when you first get an offer accepted, you're going to have a handful of days to get the home inspected and see what all the critical issues might be that you can't see just from doing a typical walkthrough. With that inspection in hand, and if you're still during your option period, you can decide whether or not you want to continue with the purchase overall, or of course renegotiate perhaps some repairs with the seller. But again, this is a cost that you'll need to pay before the closing even happens, so it's good to just be prepared for that cost in advance so that you know it's coming. The next cost that you should be aware of is prepaid expenses at the closing table. Bye, Bagel. One of the biggest expenses that some people are not fully prepared for is going to be prepaid taxes. Oftentimes, your lender will have you prepay your entire first year of property taxes at closing, which they will hold within the escrow account and pay out when the time is right. But there's also going to be homeowners insurance and possibly HOA dues that are due at closing. Sometimes those costs can be prorated between the seller and the buyer. If the seller has already paid for, say, the HOA costs for the entire year, the taxes for the whole year, they will be refunded for the portion of the year that they're not actually living in the home, while you would then be responsible for that portion of the year. Next small cost that you want to be prepared for would be a home warranty, which is an optional cost, and usually it's only a few $100s. The title company can help you set it up at closing, but it is an item that we could negotiate. If we're in more of a buyer's market, oftentimes we can ask the seller to pay for a home warranty at closing and they'll cover that cost. Your home warranty is separate from your homeowner's insurance, and usually it's a 1-year term when you first purchase a resale home. If you buy from a builder, they're going to have a different home warranty setup. But if you buy just a resale home, usually it's a 1-year policy that covers any repairs or replacements of major systems or appliances. And it really only covers normal wear and tear. It does not cover any pre-existing issues if those items had any pre-existing issues. Next cost is HOA transfer fees. Now, I mentioned HOA dues earlier, and that's a more common cost that you're probably familiar with. But when you buy a home that's in an HOA, they oftentimes also have a transfer cost. And this could be anywhere between, a few $100s to $1,000. It totally depends on the HOA and their rules and requirements. But that's typically a cost that the buyer takes over, but it can also be another point of negotiation to see if you can negotiate the seller to cover that cost for you. Mr. Bagel does not pay any HOA dues, nor does he pay any rent or mortgage. He lives rent-free. Yes, he lives rent-free. Next cost could be moving costs. So depending on, your situation, if you're relocating, be prepared that moving can be expensive, whether you're doing it yourself with a U-Haul or hiring a moving service company. I do have some contacts for moving services, so if you're interested in connecting with some of those, I could definitely get you in contact for a moving company. So your moving costs could range from moving trucks to utility deposits to new furniture, or even just temporary housing between your old home and your new home. Last cost to touch on is going to be your realtor or agent commissions, and that would be for your buyer's agent. Realtor commissions are always negotiable, but it's typically determined well in advance when you first sign that representation agreement with your agent. In most cases, the seller still oftentimes pays both the buyer and the seller agent commission wrapped into that actual sale price. However, we can't just assume that it will always be included in the sale price. So this is a cost, usually 3% of the purchase price, that you can ask your agent about before writing an offer to make sure that you're fully informed on whether or not it's going to be included in the sale price for that particular property and working with that particular seller, or if it's going to be a cost on top of your offer amount. If you'd like a customized estimate for what your potential all-in costs might be on buying a new home here in Austin, please reach out. Book a call with me down below. We'll talk strategy and we'll also talk numbers based on your price point and your goals. And we'll go through everything in detail together just to make sure that you don't have any surprise expenses or hidden costs when it comes to the closing table. Buying your first home in Austin should not be overwhelming. It should be exciting and it should be fun. With the right preparation and planning, you can reduce a lot of stress that comes along with a huge purchase like this. Again, I am Brigid Schlegel, your Austin real estate agent, and I can't wait to help you find your perfect home. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any more great buyer and seller tips for the Austin market here. And again, I'm happy to meet together for a conversation over coffee if you're a local here in Austin, or you can book a call with me down below anytime and join my newsletter. I send one out every month with a monthly giveaway, so you don't want to miss that either. Thank you so much for watching. I can't believe you're all the way here at the end of my video. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.